So a lot of journalists rely on something known as reporter's privilege. Now, reporter's privilege pretty much protects journalists from having to testify in court about the identity of their sources in all but the most extreme cases. Now, that's very important because a lot of journalists, or I should say a lot of sources, rely on confidentiality promised by journalists. Now, a good example, I would say, would be Glenn Greenwald and Edward Snowden. Now, before Edward Snowden had chose to reveal himself, he was under confidentiality from Glenn Greenwald, right? And so this journalist privilege protects leakers from being outed by the courts. Now, in an article written in the Freedom of the Press Foundation, Trevor Timm writes about how the Fourth Circuit Court has just recently ruled that there is no right to reporter's privilege in the First Amendment, nor is there common law privilege in the Fourth Circuit, nor does the court have the right to create one. Now, there was a district court who had established a common law privilege that the Fourth Circuit Court had just overturned. And this district court had written about this decision: a criminal trial subpoena is not a free pass for the government to rifle through a reporter's notebook. I want everybody to sit there and think about that. If reporters don't have this privilege to protect their sources, then how would a source come forward? What would make a source feel better when he has information about what the government is doing? What would make him want to come forward if they knew that the reporter would have to testify against him in a court of law?
Well, that's exactly why they're doing this, to
this is shutting down leaks.
Yeah, to scare people into not giving out information that government officials and legislators don't want out there. So they're trying to intimidate people to prevent that from happening.
It's what it is. It is actually, Russia's a lot more democratic now than we are to a certain extent, but it's very V for Vendetta and very George Orwell's 1984. That's where things are going.
Yeah, more and more I'm being reminded of, I'm sorry I haven't read 1984, but it is reminding me more and more of this country of V for Vendetta and even Hunger Games. We don't have the arena yet, but, I mean, we're heading in the right direction.
I actually have a maybe surprising take on this. I don't think there is a natural right or a constitutional right to reporter's privilege. Like, I think that it's a good law to pass it, but I don't think the court could just make it up out of nowhere. Like, your Fifth Amendment protects you from testifying against yourself, so, like, if you go up there and plead the Fifth, that's perfectly fine. But, like, I think it's something that should be legislated, not done by the courts in this instance. And I think it sucks. I think it's going to lead to, you know, everything that you're saying, but I don't think that you have a right to not be subpoenaed if you're a journalist. I just think that we should pass a law that says that that shouldn't happen under,
like a shield
unless
law.
Under the most extreme. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
okay, I don't think it's a constitutional right, is what I'm saying.
A shield law would be great because right now, according to that court decision, there's nothing stopping reporters from being used as prosecutors, called to testify as to their sources at the whims of the executive, which is oftentimes the very branch of government that they were reporting on. And that was part of that court's decision, what they had wrote about it. Now, it's really important to remember, now the Fourth Circuit Court was the one who made this ruling. And it just so happens that the NSA, the CIA, and the Joint Services Command are all located in the Fourth Circuit. Well, that's kind of funny. Now, there's a great blogger by the name of Marcy Wheeler. She's done reporting on how many times Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was waterboarded, and she also covered the Scooter Libby trial. And she said, quote, "This pretty much guts national security journalism in the states in which it matters." Absolutely. And this case really has a lot to do with who I mentioned earlier, James Risen. So the district court had granted Risen with the privilege not to testify about his sources after he submitted an affidavit to the court about his reporting on abuses during the Bush administration. Now, of course, this was during the Bush administration, he says that he had been harassed, wiretapped, and monitored by the government. They even went so far as to pull his credit reports. And he had been threatened by the Bush administration with prosecution under the Espionage Act for reporting on that program. Now, later on, the Bush administration actually dropped that subpoena, but here comes the Obama administration, and they picked it right back up and reissued the subpoena, and now they're trying to put James Risen in jail. So much for hope and change. Am I right?
So much for the First Amendment as well.
Absolutely. So I mean, this is not the change that we all wanted, for sure. And this is not the most transparent administration on ever. My ass.
Well, I could see clear as day that they hate media. That's pretty transparent.
No, well, they hate the truth. They hate.
Yeah, too much truth.
They hate leakers, whistleblowers.
Too much truth has gotten out lately, and they're realizing this, and they're doing their best to try to prevent more of this in the future. Yeah, you got to shut it down, because eventually, if people know enough truth, you won't be able to hide it from them anymore, and they won't accept what you have to give them.
It is what it is. They hate whistleblowers. I mean, look at it. Prosecute Bradley Manning, prosecute Edward Snowden, blow fucking Michael Hastings to hell. It is exactly what it is.
I mean, you could make an argument about the whistleblowers because they broke the law or whatever. I think that, you know, they were trying to do a greater good, and it's about intent and all that. But you can make the argument, but the journalists who report it, that's journalism. Now, I know I said that there's no...
We don't like journalism here in America. The Obama administration hates journalism. Look at what's happened to Assange right now. He's sitting up in an embassy, afraid that he's going to get extradited back to the United States. And you know how they go after people like that? They use sex to get after them. That's what they're doing with Assange. They already have Manning. They're after Snowden.
The CIA has actually used child pornography in the past as well.
Even though there's no, in my opinion, there's no right to the media privilege. There is,
in a functioning democracy, there should be.
Right.
There should be a law, but there's no like special like natural inalienable right, because obviously.
Well, the thing is,
I'm sure,
there is no such
but I'm
thing
saying
as
I'm sure
natural.
people believe it. But I'm saying I'm sure people believe that there are some exemptions to that right, like in a really severe situation, that there would be exemptions. So if there's exemptions, there's no right, is what I'm saying.
I'm going to paraphrase George Carlin here. There's no such thing as rights. We don't have any rights. We made them up. We decide what rights we have and what rights we don't have. So if we want to have a right to a privilege that would prevent people from being afraid to talk to reporters, then we should have that right. We should implement that right. I don't think there's any such thing as inalienable natural rights.
I disagree. I think rights all extend from our humanity, but that I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a media privilege law, but
there should be a media shield law, and the one
there definitely should.
The ones going on in Congress right now are woefully inadequate because they don't even do protections for journalists anymore. So, I mean, when it comes to the Obama administration, they want to avoid journalism from breaking out. That's really disastrous. That's really scary, and you cannot have that in a functioning democracy, which we do not have any longer.
There's a secondary issue that is a constitutional issue. Like if you believe, which I believe, that these prosecutions are intended to send a message rather than are about the specific case, then that's called chilling free speech, because you're trying to shake people out of their journalistic, like you're trying to stop people from doing journalism by setting like examples. So that is actually unconstitutional. So if they ruled in that way, the court, that that this is a frivolous prosecution, and they're trying to chill free speech, that's completely different. Like, that would be a constitutional issue. But I just think that there's no natural right or no right that extends from the First Amendment to a media privilege, a specific media privilege law. I think there should be a law, but I don't think it's a right.
Here it was a more of a common law. So there wasn't
Exactly.
anything that was actually passed, as far as I know,
Right.
because a common law is something that's just on the
Based on
books.
tradition.
It's based on tradition, and that's a tradition that we need to continue. We need to go back to, and I think it's absolutely disgusting that that this court decided to overturn that and say that, oh yeah, we hate journalism, we hate journalists, we hate leakers, and we're going to go after them as much as we can so we can avoid further leaks in the future, so we can continue doing the horrible things. Because that's what these leakers have been exposing, is the horrible things that we've been doing. The United States government has been doing to not only its own people, but the people over in Iraq with Bradley Manning and the NSA spying, PRISM, all of this stuff. So, I mean, it's disgusting that if you report on a leak, you could end up being charged with the Espionage Act, and that ain't right.
One positive, it seems like the more they crack down, the more whistleblowers we get. Like you end up creating like more panic. Like
Yeah.
people realize how bad it is. You know what I mean? So that's one positive of all the negative.
Yeah, we have to. We've got to do something about this. We've got to get our democracy back. Plug for wolf-pack.com.
Do you guys hate it how
Wolf-pack.com,
that a lot of people out there, they think that George W. Bush was the most tyrannous government in existence, even though Barack Obama is far more draconian than George W. Bush ever was. I just hate the fact that it is, on a social level, people are blindsided. Completely
Yeah.
blindsided.
Velvet glove. You put a velvet glove over the iron fist, people don't notice it.
Well, I think a lot
That's
of
what
this also
Obama is.
has to do with the partisanship of politics.
I could play you videos of him in the beginning of his campaign saying how he wasn't going to deport as many people as the previous administration, and he wasn't going to deport anybody. And under his administration, he had the most deportations, and under his administration, he had the most crackdowns on dispensaries. It's far worse.